I'm glad they didn't see me picking my nose. Never mind.
Hello. Yep. Just another. It's a miserable day today.
Oh God, it's horrible here. It's like, torrential downpour.
Yeah.
And like 40 degrees. I say that rain and just above freezing is worse than 10 degrees and snow.
I buy that.
I think that too, because of the moisture that sort of creeps into your body. I would agree with that.
Yeah, I'll take snow any day of the week over this. This is and I'm going to the hockey game tonight, the Flyers game tonight. That's gonna be fun.
Yeah, a lot of luminaries will be there.
Yes, it is the Hall of Fame night for the Flyers.
Yeah,
one of their many. They have, they have a lot of these special.
They have 5 of them planned, I think.
Yes, this is number. Will this be number 1 or number 2 after the
1? I think they said it was the first.
This is officially the first after the.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Also working on a new website, which is kind of not a new website, it's just some cool tweaks to hockeybuzz.com. But that's a ways off, but just some really fun stuff you guys will like. Some really cool new features. So
nice.
Yeah. That's been going on too. You're going to love that. That's still.
That takes a while. I hope people understand how long that takes.
Months and months and months. I mean, we've already been doing it for a year, so it's still months from getting launched. But you guys will love it when it comes out.
Even with my own website, when we transferred over to like WordPress, we didn't even bring all the archives. You're bringing all the archives. Like we decided, you know what, we're not going to do that, and it made it a lot easier. Yeah, it does. When you do that, I don't know if people understand that that's a big undertaking.
Oh yeah, no, to be able to search back and all this stuff, it's huge. And we're gonna have some really cool modern features though that'll enable you to do all kinds of fun things and be able to target what you want to watch. You just want to see more than before. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. People are gonna.
What if I want to see less Mike? How do I do that?
You can do that. You can actually eliminate it.
Poke out your eyes.
You can press the no mic button. There's a big button.
Okay.
It says no mic, and hit that no mic button, and that big button will just.
A trapdoor. It'll be like oh God, it'll be like Austin Powers. A trapdoor will open up. I'll fall through and I'll be eaten by alligators.
Right.
That's a good thing to put on Patreon. Just saying.
It is a good thing. Couldn't agree more.
Thank you.
Couldn't agree more. All right, let's get going with the show because we may have to stop a little bit early today. Not too bad though. Da-da-da-da.
Silent Night.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah. Hello, Hockey World. It's Thursday, October 27th, 2016.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Eklund, and you're watching the Hockeybuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And we today are going to sort of fill you in on a bunch of little stories. But we're going to start off with Hampus Lindholm, who and this will be the second show that we will talk about a man named Hampus this week. But we'll go back with Hampus. Hampus Lindholm has agreed to a
It's the same guy we're talking about.
I know, but it's there's not a lot of Hampuses out there. I don't know about you, but I don't know any other Hampuses.
I don't either.
Or Hampi, would they be called Hampi if you had many of them? Hampus.
Russ knows Krampus.
I do.
Hampi. I don't know any other Hampi. But Hampus Lindholm, which is not a sea creature, but actually a defenseman for the Anaheim Ducks, has agreed to a 6-year contract at $5.25 AAV, which is exactly where pretty much everybody thought he would end up.
Yeah. I mean, you knew he wouldn't get top of the pay scale because of the organization and their needs. And so I think he got a great deal. Now, I think his deal will impact Jacob Trouba because I think now he is undercut like Trouba's asking price, and he's pretty much as good as Trouba.
Right.
And so I think that's something that will affect those negotiations. So in a way, that was a smart move by Cheverdayoff, sort of waiting this out because now this has settled the market a little more. But they still have salary cap issues, Anaheim, and they're going to have to clear it up.
Well, I consider this the Southern California discount because in all rights, he should be making what Ristolanen's making at 5.4, what Seth Jones is making at 5.4 million, and he's taking $150,000 less. And I can only assume that he's doing it because he likes Southern California, he likes where he is, he likes where the club is, and he took a little bit of a haircut to stay there. In terms of Trouba, I don't think it's going to affect the situation with Trouba at all because it may, his leverage with the Jets may, now that the market is set, I just don't think he wants to be in Winnipeg. And if he keeps demanding $6.5, $7 million, that proves he doesn't want to be in Winnipeg.
Well, let's wait and see on that. It's
Right.
I got some Trouba news, and we got Trouba news. We didn't get to yesterday, so because yesterday we got an interesting discussion on the media, which I liked. I got a lot of good comments about that too.
Okay.
Which is good because I didn't know if you guys would be really.
I mean, at least not everybody hates the hockey media. We know that the general media in the world has had people turn on them, but luckily nobody's turned on the hockey.
What does Trump call it? The medias? The medias people?
Yeah.
You're a medias. You're a medias. You're a media. That's what just Russ. You're a media. You yourself are a media, which means you're a forum for transferring information.
It's amazing how somebody goes from a media whore to a media hater in about 5 seconds, as Mr. Trump did. So.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, without the media, Trump barely exists, right? So let's not get there. But anyway, all right. So here we go. Because he sure wasn't complaining during the Republican primaries. But let's not talk about that. Let's move on to what was I saying? Oh my gosh! To Jacob Trouba. All right. First of all, before Lindholm, one last thing on Lindholm. He's in Sweden right now, so he's got to get a visa. There's going to be some time. He's not going to be showing up for the next game, but he's going to be here soon, within a week or so, which is pretty amazing. If you ever had a friend who was trying to get a visa to work in this country, how quickly they can get done. Because it's like if you have a person who you know from outside the country who wants to come here and work, it takes literally years. But he'll have him in by the end of the week. He'll be fine.
Yeah,
it is interesting, but not that the government's corrupt at all. I'm not joining that. But anyway, there's something about visas, and man, when it comes to professional athletes, they get visas damn fast. Is all I have to say. So we shouldn't complain. But okay, moving on to Jacob Trouba. Jacob Trouba. I heard yesterday, and I talked to a couple sources about this the day before. It really appears as if Winnipeg is not going to trade him. It really appears as if Winnipeg just is not getting anything close to what they want.
There you go.
And they are just and they really want him. Actually, they do want him. Like, this is
right.
And it's not just him, but it's more than just just him. It's also the fact that there's players on that team that have been pushing as well to get him to stay. There's a definite players out there saying we really want you to stay in Winnipeg. And it seems to be getting somewhere, because what I've heard is within the next couple weeks to expect Jacob Trouba to sign back with Winnipeg. That they are talking now, that there is negotiations going on, and that it is getting somewhere.
Yeah, and I think the Lindholm thing, the signing does impact it. I do.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's very possible. But all I look at in this situation is that he's asking for higher money because he doesn't want to be there. Now, if Winnipeg, I'm sure this stance is more the fact they're not getting any offers comparable to what they're asking for. Nobody is giving a left-hand shot defenseman the equal of Jacob Trouba for Jacob Trouba. So unless Kevin Cheveldayoff is prepared to take a package deal or something other than the 1-for-1 that he hinted at, then the only option really, unless you're willing to wait till after December 1st and let him waste the entire season and then go back on this situation all again next summer, is to capitulate and give him maybe a short-term deal. Maybe it's a 2-year deal.
Yeah, I think he's getting a Kucherov type deal. I think he's getting 3 or 4 years. That's what he's going to get.
Well, maybe he gets 1. Maybe they just want.
No, I don't think they'll do 1.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible.
It is possible, but I don't think they'll do 1. I think 2 would be the minimum. I do.
2 makes it a lot easier to even trade him. Like that's the only thing about 2. Like, so if they can get him at a relatively reasonable price, 2 makes it easier to move him.
Yeah, because then, he's not an RFA next year. There's no, the team that signs him or the team that trades for him has him under control for another year, and they're protected because he would be arbitration eligible after a 2-year deal. So even if they didn't trade him, they could string it along. But I mean, ideally, they want to get him locked up on a long-term deal, but he's
not going to do that probably. So that's why I say I think it's going to be one of those mid-range deals, 2, 3, maybe even 3 years and an option, something like that.
I would say 2. If I had to guess right now, I would say 2. But I'm still 50-50 on him being traded. But
It could be a long-term deal too. I was told. I mean, don't be shocked if we've seen this before. Like if they want to, if Winnipeg just wants to step up because the best way to get him to really want to stay in Winnipeg is for Winnipeg to make a bold statement here, like to go to him and say, okay, this is what we're going to give you 6 years. We're going to give you the Lindholm contract or something like that. And if that happens,
I think the bold statement is giving him the Dougie Hamilton contract, which is $5.75.
I agree. If they give him the Lindholm offer, I don't think he'd accept that on face value, but I think he would accept the Hamilton one. I think that is bolder. I think they probably will give him the Lindholm offer, and then they'll probably counter it.
And I also think if they try to if they're intent on signing him to a long-term deal, just like with Lindholm, the consequence of that contract might be Fowler eventually being traded. There's going to be another shoe to drop in Winnipeg. Does that mean that they trade Tyler Myers? Does that mean that they trade one of the forwards?
They're not trading Tyler Myers, I can tell you.
Right. Or does that mean they're trading one of the forwards to clear cap room? Because
I could see a Brian Little or somebody like that going.
Exactly.
Yeah, that would make sense. I think that what we've seen here so far is a little disconcerting, but the fact of the matter is, according to people I talked to, at least, it looks like Trouba is coming back. Like, he's not even in Winnipeg right now, but that he would come back to Winnipeg and be there shortly.
I mean, like we said, the market has settled now, so now you know what the high is and you know what the low is.
Yeah. And also, if he is going to eventually sign with Winnipeg, he wants to get it, and he is going to play the next couple of years in Winnipeg. It behooves him to get in there soon and make this happen, and also try to help the team. Because if he wants to show that on his side of things. I
mean, listen, he's a gamer. That's never even
right. So that's why I could see as a player, you could see him saying, "Okay, fine, we'll do a 1 year, 2 year deal."
Here's the tough part, and I heard this being broached on another show. The tough part is when your teammates do reach out to you and say, "Hey, come on, like I'm just really paraphrasing, but come on, dude, we're in a good place. We need you."
Not that much. You're not that much paraphrasing. I mean, I've been with players when they've been in this situation. I've seen their phones and texts they get and stuff like that.
But it's hard because when you're a player and you're taking the stand that he is, it's hard to receive those kinds of messages because you do feel bad, but you are also trying to, help yourself out financially, which he has every right to do.
Yeah. And players for the most part get that.
Yeah.
For the most part, other players understand that this could just as easily be them in this spot. They all realize that eventually, if they're going to be the jerks, that if they're eventually going to be in that same spot, how are they going to be able to stand up to the other people? So, but I will tell you, you've all hung around guys, right? Like just guys in general. You know what it's like, to be around guys.
Wait, you're not going to talk about locker room talk, right?
No, this is not locker room talk. This is just like. Like, what the hell's going on? What are you doing? Just
excuse me, let me grab this.
Friggin' sign a contract and come already. What the hell? And that kind of stuff happens. It does. It really does. Like there are guys out there. It's like, come on, I'll buy a case of beer if you sign by tomorrow. Get over yourself and get in. That kind of stuff does happen. Especially among his better friends on the team. And he's a popular player on that team and in that locker room. So this is not a player who, this is why there's a reason why the players have been pitching to get, and they've not just been pitching him, they've been pitching the Jets. So they've been pitching the Jets as well to get him in. So this is not.
It's tough on both sides, but I get it. I never begrudge either side on these kinds of things. But we see that it's going to work out one way or the other, whether it's long term or not. It will work out.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. All right. Here's an interesting thing with his goal last night. Corey Perry did something that was kind of interesting in Ducks history. He passed Paul Kariya for sole possession of third on the Ducks all-time point list.
That's pretty good.
It's interesting, isn't it?
But not Perry. Kariya did miss significant time with concussions. Otherwise, I don't think he'd be passing him yet. But still, for Perry, that's again. This is why I constantly tell everybody, if they were going to shake up that room, I would trade Getzlaf over Perry, because at the end of the day, Perry does too many things that are valuable. And he's not locked into like a power game or a finesse game, or he is like that hybrid kind of player that can do a lot of things and will last a long time in this league.
Well, let's just touch on this for a second, because the name of Fowler is probably going to be out there until the deadline, and then probably into the off season.
Yep.
Everybody assumes that the Ducks are going to trade Fowler for a forward, and I think that's right, because I think they need to add scoring. But do they add a center or do they add a winger? Because Kessler can play the wing. He has played the wing in the past. I think they need a scoring winger. That's what all these rumors in Toronto all over the summer. I mean, remember, a few years ago, the rumor that we constantly heard from everyone was JVR for Luke Shen, and then it finally happened. Right.
Don't get me started on that one. Oh my God.
No, I know.
The way that went down.
I'm not the only reason.
Just took me to a bad spot, Mike. But yeah, I agree with you. That was going on for a long time, and
all we've heard since July is JVR for Fowler. Now I don't know right now whether the Leafs would do it because I think they want a veteran like JVR to be there for Matthews or.
How many more years is left on JVR's deal?
They're both the same length. Both have another year. JVR makes 4.25. Fowler makes 4. Fowler is a couple years younger. I think he's 24. JVR I think is 26 or 27. But
I think Anaheim would do that if they felt like they were a piece away from making the Stanley Cup. But otherwise, I don't think Anaheim would do it because they probably know that they wouldn't be able to re-sign JVR after that period is up.
But if you're Anaheim, you could argue that you're a piece away from winning the Stanley Cup. I mean, you could. I mean, they're close enough. I mean, they're in that realm. I think
they're going to stick with the core, and they think he's the piece. Then it makes sense. But if you're looking long term, it doesn't make sense.
The big thing about JVR, and I've always said this, is that JVR is a playoff guy, and really you get his best games, he's at his best when he's in the playoffs. And he always has. I mean, with the Flyers, he was a great playoff performer. And you know, and in his history, in his career, he's been great in tournaments. That's sort of his thing. You know, and the problem with in Toronto over the next 2 years, you might not even see the playoffs. So, you know, where Anaheim, they're going to the playoffs in all likelihood. So
that's the dilemma that Lou Lamoriello has, is the fact that when his contract is up, they may want to sign him, but then the contracts of Nylander and Matthews are coming up. Then you got to invest big money there, and JVR will be 28 or 29 years old. So, that's why I think, in the next couple years, you're going to see JVR probably traded. You're going to see Nazem Kadri traded. You're going to see Tyler Bozak traded, because the young guys will be the core players and the guys they want to build around. And the guys who have been there since Randy Carlyle and Ron Wilson, they're going to be afterthoughts. They're going to be supplemental players.
Well, it's
here's
interesting.
The problem. Here's the problem with Anaheim. If you look at their system, like Max Jones is probably their best offensive player in their system. I think even better than Nick Ritchie at this point, because I don't think Ritchie is showing as much as many thought he would. So when you think about that, I mean, there's an outside chance Max Jones could be a top liner, but other than that, there's really nobody else that's going to be a top liner to even replace the core when they're done. And if they're our successful team this year, they're not going to draft that high. For me, I'd have to look down the road here and get somebody from an organization that I think could be a top liner for Fowler. And then this would be a playoff team that is willing to trade for Fowler because they think he is going to put them over the top.
But the window is small there, Russ. I mean, the thing is, I
don't know if it's that small. You got to wait till the deadline for that.
Where's Fowler from? Oh, he's American, right?
He's American.
He's from Michigan, I believe.
Right, he's from Michigan, right? So he's not that far from Toronto.
But no, I'm saying the window is small because you've got Getzlaf, Perry, Kessler, all in their late 20s, early 30s, that range. A couple, 3 years at the most. So you might have to make that trade where you trade Fowler for a guy who can help you right now.
I would rather get that guy down the road that I think could really help me offensively. And because right now Fowler, not any slight to him, but if Shea Theodore kicks in like I think he will be an extra piece that they can't afford to trade.
Right.
Now, are the Ducks over the cap with this signing right now?
I heard that they are, but I haven't had a chance to look.
They put Simone Dupre on long-term injury, so they're right at the cap. But once he comes off the LTIR, then they're over. So
yeah,
you're going to have to make some sort of move.
It's so they're 1.4 over, right, when he comes back?
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Somebody sent me the CBA about this, actually.
Dupre is a $3.7 million cap hit.
Okay. They're fined $25,000 if they go over the CBA. It's interesting. If they sign a contract that puts them over the salary cap, or otherwise circumvents it, the team is fined $25,000, and an arbitrator or the commissioner may and do any of these things: impose a fine on the club that would count against the cap space next season, fine the player, make the club forfeit draft picks, make the club forfeit games in which they're over the cap, audit the club, void the SPC. I don't know what that is.
Standard player contract.
Maybe suspend club employees. Wow. Suspend club employees. You park the cars. You're out of here.
I think the
contract.
I think Bob Murray has a little time because I think while they're waiting for Lindholm's visa situation to kick in,
right,
it doesn't count against the cap. So they probably have a week to 10 days. If Dupre is coming back, then they have a dilemma. If he's out long term, then they have.
And this stuff always cracks me up. Like, what if he's like, it's almost like, he turned me into a newt. No, I'm better. It's like reminds me of Monty Python.
Yeah.
It's like, is he okay? Yeah, I'm fine. No, you're not. You're still hurt. You stay there. Dupre. No, I feel fine. I'm good. Look at me. I'm okay. No, you're not. You're not. You're obviously hurt. No, I'm not. No. Yeah. No.
Well, there's rental space on Robidas Island if they need it.
Right. Yes.
I think
I want to be on Robidas Island. He made a lot of money for doing nothing last year. Let's be frank about Robidas. He had a good deal last year, man.
I think this will work itself out, but I don't think there'll be a deal to work it out. I think it'll be other things.
Chances are the NHL, they're working closely with the NHL on this stuff. That's usually what happens. Because the NHL wants them to get it. The NHL wants their players to play. They want this guy to be signed too. I mean, it behooves everybody to make this happen. So, it's usually not that hard to figure these things out, but it is an issue. It is always fascinating to me how many, and for the Ducks, like we talked about before, they're not a salary cap team, so they don't want to be this high up right now, and that's going to be an issue too. So as this plays out,
I think they'll go maybe half a season that way until the deadline, and then I think that's when you can really get the most for Fowler.
Yeah, I think so too. But man, if you're a good team at the deadline, that's going to really be at that point. At that point, you've already spent the money on Fowler. Why not just keep him the rest of the year? I mean, you're talking about like 1 month left in the season. I mean,
because you could still save on it and get.
Yeah, but you're not going to trade a defenseman with the month left in the season if you're in it. I mean, that's crazy, don't you think? I mean, I don't think. I mean, I think you just suck it up and you figure out another way. But you're not going to trade a good defenseman if you feel like you have a shot.
Well, I mean, they have a lot of depth. They do.
They do have a lot of depth, but he's still better than most of them. Let's talk about Shea Weber a second. He's having a hell of a year, by the way. Silently, this whole thing of who's better. Remember the Shea Weber or Subban page? I should bring that up again. I forget where that was. There's a whole website designed to this who's better. But Shea Weber, is 1 point behind Austin Matthews in scoring. How about that? First off, let's throw that out there. Okay, he's top 10 in times on ice in the NHL. So he's played as much as he's played more than he has. He's been on ice for 1 even strength goal against in 7 games. 1.
Okay.
Single one. So that, I mean, look at these. I mean, that
also has to do with the goalie too. It's not all him.
Yeah, but the rest of the team plays with that goalie. I mean, he is by far, he's way ahead of everybody else on the team. And just in the scoring itself, I mean, because most people would have said that this is a good move, except for the fact that, you're going to get more offense out of PK, right? So, but you're not, and so far you're not this year. You're not getting more offense out of PK. PK has been good, but he hasn't been this good. And by the way, I have a huge bone to pick with that game last night, the Anaheim-Nashville game, okay? Because I'm watching, this has happened to me twice now in the last month. I don't play DraftKings all the time, okay? But last night, I got invited by one Dan Petru, who was supposed to be on the show today. I wanted to pick this directly with him, but he's not here, so I'm going to say it anyway. So Dan Petru invites me to play with his group of Islanders fans, which is really fun and easy to pick against them because they're all going to pick Islanders players. So you know how to do it. So especially when there's Islanders game last night. So a week ago, I lost to Dan in the final minutes, and I came in second of the 7 players. Last night, I came in second again, and I was up the entire night. And Andrew Cogliano scoring that friggin' goal with like no time left on the clock for Anaheim, I guess it was.
Yes.
Make me lose by 0.5%. It's just like I lose $25 on that friggin' Andrew Cogliano goal. Can I just say, sorry, this is what I don't like about sports gambling. But
that's why I don't do it.
That's why I don't ever do it.
I'm like actually saying to my wife, I'm like, hey, look, I'm up. I checked the DraftKings thing. I'm winning. And there's only like 5 seconds left in each of these games. And I go to sleep and I wake up and I'm in second.
Hey, that's a fatal flaw. You shouldn't have told her.
I get worked up on Stratomatic hockey draft. that are money. There's no money tied to it. Nothing. So
There you go.
I think if there's money tied to it, that's why I don't do it.
So I'm not sure if this is on your docket, Ek, but yesterday the national game was the Bruins Rangers, and the Bruins really collapsed in that second period. Like the Rangers played well, but they really did collapse. And because I thought Zane McIntyre was playing a good game up to that point. He had stopped in first period he stopped like 9 or 10 shots, and then all of a sudden it just fell in on him. And people are starting to blame Torrey Krug, but it's like, hey, wait a minute. It takes a while for this guy to come back off of shoulder surgery and work himself back to where he was last season. This is not magic. He came back early.
Right.
We all feel like he came back early.
Oh, yeah, and he's suddenly being put into like a top 2 role, which is tough. Yeah.
I just feel like he's getting the short end on that. I get that their defense isn't perfect. We've talked about it. I think Carlo had a good game, but he was, he didn't have a great game. There were times where, he had some rookie flaws too. But it's just, I just feel bad for Torrey Krug. I saw that and I was like, there's more things happening here. There was a lot of undisciplined penalties. There were things that, they kept putting the Rangers on the power play. I got to see how many power plays they had, but it was too many. And so we get news today that Dylan McIlrath is probably going to be put on waivers unless they could deal him.
Well, he has been put on waivers.
He has been? Okay. Yeah. And so I thought he was, but then I was seeing that they're trying to really deal him before they technically do it, so I wasn't sure where we were at with it. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure somebody's got to take him, but here's my feeling about Dylan McIlrath. He has the ability to play in the NHL. I don't think he can play every day. I don't think he's an everyday guy. I think he's a depth guy. He's basically a 6 or a 7, or on a great team an 8, where he's going to sit, and then when you have an injury, he's going to come in, or when you need toughness, he's going to come in, or for a 2-week period, he's going to come in. He has certainly been good enough for that. But when the Rangers picked up Holden and they picked up Clendening, you kind of saw the writing on the wall. Vigneault basically said, and we talked about it, that preseason speech he had, McIlrath can make the team, and then he came up with like an 8-point list of what he had to do to make the team. And, so that was pretty much telling me where that was at. And so I get that he's become a fan favorite because he's a good guy. He put out a great quote today, a very classy quote. But at the end of the day, I can see why they're doing this. They're not going to move Dan Girardi. He's got a no-movement clause. He probably doesn't have a lot of trade value based on his salary. So Girardi's going nowhere. The Ranger fan base doesn't like that, but that's just the reality. He's going nowhere. And they like what they've seen out of Clendening, which I get. I mean, he's a good puck-moving defenseman. I don't know if he's going to get that many points, but he is a good puck-moving defenseman. And so they felt like that's good. Holden, I don't know. I think mediocre returns there, but
better with Clendening than Holden.
Yeah. And so, and then Brady Shea is going to play every day. And so, when you look at that, you realize, okay, he's just going to be out of the picture. And so I do think a team will pick him up. I could see someone like Calgary maybe have an interest. I mean, he in his junior career, he was a star out in Western Canada, and he is a tough guy, and Brian Burke is still there. And I could see that being a good fit, but I don't know. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are.
I think Calgary's a great fit for him, to be honest. I do. I was a little surprised. I mean, you can see him being the odd man out. You can see that. I mean, there's a couple guys on waivers say they're kind of interesting.
Well, Puljujarvi
as well. McIlrath, Puljujarvi, yep.
Puljujarvi, I think, has hit the end of the line here. I think he's going to end up going back overseas. I had a lot of hopes for him, but the problem is that he was just
Puljujarvi, not Jesse Puljujarvi.
No, Puljujarvi. I know who you mean. Puljujarvi. He had these tremendous offensive skills, and at the next level, at the NHL level, he just was never able to put it together for any length of time, and he can't play defense. He is just he's a one-dimensional skill kind of guy, finesse guy, and he just has never put it together.
Well, based on what you described him as, Russ, the absolute worst coach for him to play for is the guy he's playing for right now, which is Ken Hitchcock.
Right. Well, that's why I was always surprised that he was there.
Right. So, I mean, maybe.
But you could go along the lines of Yakupov, too. A lot of people thought that with Yakupov.
But he does play better defense. Yakupov does play better defense than Puljujarvi.
Yeah.
So maybe a team like an Arizona or a Columbus or somebody who's challenged offensively who would give Puljujarvi a more of an opportunity to score would claim him before he goes back to Europe.
Yeah, I think
The
so.
Rangers, just so you know, the Rangers had 6 power plays last night.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, and Russ, can you tell us about this new guy? I've heard of him before. His name is Jim Vesey.
Yeah.
He's real good.
Again, when people, all they have to do is look past their hatred of the holdout. If you could do that, you'll see he's a fine hockey player. And
I Dan was on the thing, so he could put tape over his mouth again.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we talked about there were a lot. We talked about him a little bit.
We talked about it at nauseum, but it really is true. It's like it wasn't his fault.
Yeah, it was
that he's upsetting you because he's not going to your team. But that didn't.
No, he was. I never had a problem with this with what he did. I did have an issue. I thought, and just from talking to people about how people thought he was a sure thing. Now he's turning into a pretty good player, and obviously he's looking. But there was a lot of sure thing in this thing.
I think it's a sure thing to play in the NHL. I don't know if he's a sure thing to get, let's say, 25 goals.
Right.
That's a different argument.
He's off to a great start, and that's good, and but as college players, they play a lot less. There's going to be a wall he's going to hit this year. He's going to have to deal with that. He's going to have to get through it, and that's normal. And that's not. And he's obviously a really sharp kid, and that's enormous. I mean, to me,
I think what people were forgetting was he was always a greasy player who was good around the net, and he has good size. And so at the end of the day, if you're willing to go to those areas, which he is willing to go to those areas, he is willing to make deflections. He's getting in the crease. He picks up rebounds. He has a good shot. If you're willing to play around there and you're strong enough to do it, you are going to have some success in this league. And I think that's why I thought he would have success, because of that reason.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I mean, and it's showing that he is. I mean, so far he is definitely, and one of the coolest things is talking to Rangers fans, how excited they are to watch him, that he's an exciting player to watch. He brings a lot.
He does. He's got a certain flair to him. He can make a great defensive play. He will lay the hit occasionally. He took that big hit that one game, and he came back and scored a goal, right? Or not a goal. He got an assist. Well, maybe he did get a goal. I can't remember, but he did come back and he performed well, and that's the key. He's got character. Yeah. And I think when people were sort of assassinating his character before he signed, they forget that on the ice he's got a lot of character.
No, definitely. Before we let you go, Russ, I wanted to put one thing. There's a really excellent article in the Hamilton Spectator today. It's the beginning of a series by a woman named Terry Pekoski, who writes for the Hamilton Spectator. It was pointed out to me by some of our readers who emailed and said we should discuss it. And she's absolutely right. They're absolutely right that we should. And I'm going to tweet out the link so you can see it after this.
Okay.
But it's called Pretty Good Rich Kids. Reaching the OHL Takes More Than Talent. And it's a 3-part series. Today's the first part of the series named called Pay to Play. And it really, I mean, she did an incredible amount of research on what it takes to get to the OHL. And
financially, you mean?
Financially and just in general.
And talent-wise, the mix?
Yeah, talent-wise, financially, a lot to this one particularly today is financial, but it's the subtitle of it, cost, geography, and public policy are factors in whether a player get to the OHL level. So today's about cost. And also another thing that that she touches on here, which is I think is really true, and I've noticed a lot as well, is when you're born has a play sometimes in this. Players who are born later in the year, that can be a certain there's a big difference. When you're
like Austin Matthews being a late draft year guy.
I mean that helps players to be born later. As much as we complain about if he was a little bit older he would have been drafted. It helps that he wasn't. It helps that he was forced to play another year and develop more. For him, and I see it now because there's a big thing in America going on in soccer, which I'm involved with youth soccer, and this happens in youth hockey too, where it used to be that when we were kids, the people you would play your little league with or Pop Warner with or whatever were the people in your grade, the people that you went to school with, and now there's been a big shift to make it year pure, right? So now that you're playing with So you're playing with some of your friends, but anyone who was born in your year, like my team, is our kids that were born in 01.
Okay.
Girls who were born in 01. So, and there's a controversy about this, and I think it's kind of stupid because I think the younger, I think maybe it's okay when you get to the elite levels, but the younger levels, I think kids want to play with their friends, and I think they should be allowed to play with their friends that they go to school with, but there's definitely a difference, in especially the younger you get, the bigger percentage of their life it becomes, Right. So the bigger that change is from January to December, It's a huge difference, and it's true with kids in school too. I mean, kids who are born, a lot of people are being held back. A lot of people are holding their kids back in school just to give them an advantage.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I buy into that.
All that has always gone on. That's gone on even since I was a kid.
Oh yeah, that's always.
But here's the thing. Okay, so I guess the first part of that argument is if you would have held Wayne Gretzky back for even the little bit that he was probably held back, what did he have? 180 goals that one year in midget, right? It's ridiculous. So
I mean, but that's such an extreme, right?
No, I know, but you don't know when you have the next Wayne Gretzky in your system, and then you would be holding him back. So I'm not really for that. I'm for playing at your level. Whatever your level is, I'm okay with. And I don't think age should really have anything to do with it. I think if somebody is 13 years old and they're good enough to play with the 16-year-olds, why not?
Right.
But then we talk about the the rule in the AHL where the players, the exceptional status where they play at 15, and it's had mixed effect. I mean,
well, it doesn't mean. See, but here's the thing: the difference is that's because a team thought he was good enough, but we don't know if the player really was good enough. I'm just saying when it's identifiable that, like, because in something like that, you're hoping that the kid's good enough. But in these other kinds of leagues, I think that could pretty much tell if there's a kid who's 13 who should be 2 levels higher.
Yeah, you see that. I mean, you definitely see that, and that's and there's all kinds of arguments about like whether they should play up or not. There's all kinds of should they dominate or should they be allowed to dominate? Should they struggle against bigger kids, which can kill their confidence? Because as youth players, confidence is so much part of their game. There's all kinds of arguments about that. But so in this, she gets into like, okay, 80% come from neighborhoods with medium family incomes above the Ontario average of 80,000.
Okay.
So they did
80,000 Canadian. Just kidding.
80,000 Canadian, right? Which is 30,000
American. Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. No, no, but and they it doesn't matter because by the way, it does. I mean, I was up there. You don't save money in Canada. There's no way.
Definitely.
You don't. Taxes, everything. It all works out the same. 90% come from neighborhoods where fewer people live in poverty than the usual 13.9%. Basically, she's making the case that this is a suburban game. That you're talking about Ontario suburbs, where they're coming through, and that because it costs about $15,000 or so to annually for an elite AAA player, and it's getting higher than that. And she says she has William Laurier, who's university's William McTeer. Yes. Okay. Sorry. William Laurier University. William McTeer. All right. So William McTeer, William Laurier is the Wilfrid Laurier is the university. Sorry. Says this. The first question you have to ask is how much money do your parents have, and are they prepared to invest in your future as a hockey athlete if you want to become the next Sidney Crosby? Yeah,
that's rough. The only thing I'll say before I have to go is I wish they could have some sort of government-funded program so that if you can't afford that, a percentage of kids could still play hockey. I would like to see that because, like, the Emerson Needham story is a good one, right? He had to ride the train. He wasn't affluent at all, and yet he has made it. But I think it is harder for somebody to come out of poverty and play hockey at the junior level. I do. And so I wish that whether all the teams kicked in and there was a fund for it, and there may be, but I'm not aware of it, or if the government just said, hey, we've got a program where we will give grants to, 100 hockey players a year. That would be a great thing. That's just me.
Awesome thing, yeah. And this article is really fantastic. I mean, there's interactive maps that show you where kids are from.
Shoot out the link. I'll comment on it on Twitter while I'm dying.
Yeah, I'll shoot out the link here, and I'm going to try to get her to come on the air because I think
that'd be great.
Really fascinating stuff. Take care of it. Thanks, Russ. Now that Russ is gone, we can talk about him. All right. I just think that's it's just it is fascinating to me, the whole concept. I do believe that the top skilled players find their ways through. I do, because I've seen it even in situations where I've seen teams pay for players to play with them that can't afford it. Like if a player is that good. Yeah,
without revealing any confidence or any confidences. I know someone whose relative of theirs plays in a league in Ontario, and the politics that goes on, the fighting over players to play in one location or another, all this stuff. The fact that there's just a whole sort of subset that goes on here that I think is a shame. It's like it should be whoever the best player is, they should play. They should play where they want to play. But it doesn't work that way. There's politics. There's a lot of stuff that goes on. And I think it's sort of to the detriment of some players who eventually could be NHL players. But it's not. You have an advantage, Jackie. You're involved in youth sports with your daughter and with your son. I don't have any kids, so I really don't know the politics of it. But I do hear about it through other people.
It's been going on since we were kids too. I mean, it's no different. I mean, it
went on with me when I was playing Little League baseball. There was one team that got all the good players.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't a good player, I was on.
Oh, can I bring up a funny point about that? Yeah. Really funny. Just like I'm sorry. Okay, so I coach 2 teams, right? And I coach my daughter's travel team, and that's a really intense team, and they really play. I mean, they play at high levels. And my daughter's in another. Good luck with Wissahickon tonight. They're in another playoff game. I won't be there, but it's going to be raining and 30 degrees. I'll be in the but that's not why I won't be there. I won't be there because I have to work. I have to be at the Flyers game. But and then I shouldn't feel sorry for myself for that, obviously. But I'm just saying that I'll be there. So anyway, so I coach her team, and I coach my son's team with my wife. My wife and I coach my son's team, which is a hodgepodge of kids that just play rec soccer, and they have a blast. And and that league is put together by the township, and that league is incredibly corrupt, where you have the head of the head of that league is a woman whose husband is coaching one of the teams, and his team is totally stacked. I mean, and they just put it all together. And our team is really just a bunch of geeks and nerds who this is probably the only athletic thing they do, but we have fun with it. And we're half decent. We're like third of 6th in the team in the league, which is good for us. But we played this team last weekend, and we were down 6-0 in halftime, and it was just. And literally, it's one of those things where they had a player that was just so much better than everybody else that shouldn't be in this kind of league, and they weren't taking him off. It's a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade league. So this kid was over 6 feet tall. He was bigger than me, and it was my son is like just 5 foot tall. So it's crazy. So anyway, the referee was horrible. It was all obviously rigged against us. And I talking to our kids at halftime. I'm like, we're gonna have some fun in the second half. So what I started to do, we had 11 players on the field as you'd normally do in soccer. I started adding players as the half went along to see when the referee would figure out that we had too many players on the field, because I didn't think he would. So we started off with 6 subs. By the end of the game, we had 1 sub, and I was playing 15 players for the last 5 minutes of the game without him having any concept of it. And we were still getting dominated. And I said, we weren't giving up as many goals, but I said to him at the end, I'm like, do you realize what we did there, right? And he's like, no. Yeah, you guys, you stop complaining about the calls. I'm like, I'm really, we weren't complaining about the calls, but just weren't paying attention to what we were doing. The kids loved it. But to be honest, this is what you get in this kind of stuff. You get politics. Politics exists everywhere. You can't get around it. And the best you can do is hope that you can teach the kids something about life through it. Like this, you're going to deal with politics in life. You're going to have to there's going to be times whenever they're going to stack the cards against you, you still have to go out there and work. That's the bottom line. So that's what we try to do out of it. So anyway, getting back to this stuff, a couple quick other news items today. The Capitals, they lost 2 consecutive regular season games after last night's game. That was the first time they've lost 2 consecutive regular season games in 19 months. That was a pretty crazy stat.
Wow.
So,
well, I mean, that tells you that good goaltending, which they've had over the last 19 months with Braden Holtby and to a lesser extent Grubauer as their backup, prevents losing streaks.
Yeah, I mean, but that's I mean, they got to get lucky to do that too. I mean, there's going to be bad nights, and Al
Ovechkin's been healthy, and they have depth of scoring. So yeah,
and you got Barry Trotz, who's been there for not all of it, but most of it.
Yeah. So,
but in that time, their record in that time is 68-21-10 in the regular season. So they are 47 games over 500 over the last 19 months. That's a dominant NHL team if I've ever seen it. I mean,
but it didn't help them in the second round.
And they haven't gotten past the second round of the playoffs. So there you go. You're right. I mean, it's been the one time they did in their history, what no one expected them to go there. So it's like that's the crazy thing about it all. But I thought that was pretty cool. Cam Talbot's shutout streak ended after 136 minutes last night. And by the way, the Edmonton Oilers are way ahead of the Los Angeles Kings in the standings. And my bet that I have with you guys is looking strong. Put it out there. As is the Ottawa Senators, who are playing very well. My two surprise teams are both. I've noticed this though about myself, and I did it I noticed this last year too, that I'm really good at predicting the first month or two of the season.
Yeah, I was gonna say, where's the voodoo doll in the studio with the pin stuck in Jonathan Quick's groin? Because
I know, but over history, I come out like gangbusters. Like I am very good at predicting what will happen in the beginning of the year. But at the end, by the end of it, all this, I'm totally terrible. Like this, so that's what
the season is not 12 games. It's
I know. But for some reason, my predictions are usually right in the beginning of the year. Only and I'm usually right by a certain point. I can sit there like now and I can gloat about these two teams, but I won't be able to gloat for very long. So there you have it. So some pretty good games on tap for tonight. I will be at the Arizona, Philadelphia game. A big game for the Flyers because they have to sort of get them, they want to keep this. They've been very up and down this year for sure. So far, it's been there's been two different Flyers teams, which you do expect with youth to a degree, but I really want to see some things get rolling here for them and see. The Islanders and Penguins play tonight. That's always a good rivalry.
And I'll be keeping a close watch on the Panthers Maple Leafs game. The Leafs have lost 4 games in a row. Roberto Luongo starting for the Panthers. Frederik Andersen, in spite of his struggles, is starting again for Toronto. The heat has started to be turned up on Frederik Andersen, and I think it's not really justified. But
yeah,
it'll continue to be poured on if he continues to struggle.
I agree. There's a ton of games tonight. Well, not a ton, but there's enough games that'll keep you occupied. The real marquee matchup tonight, though, has got to be Tampa and Montreal because, Tampa's at 5-1, Montreal's 6-0-1. That's there you've got. This is going to be the real test, and this is a team that Montreal does not play well against historically.
And I have to say, this is a repeat of what Montreal did at the beginning of last year. They're getting offense from everybody. Like Dale was scoring like crazy last year. They're getting offense from Deneau and from third, fourth line guys.
The difference, though, there is a difference, I think, in terms of the fact that they did play the first several games without Price, and that was, so this as Price has only played in 3 games now.
3 games, yeah, I think so.
So and so I give him a little bit more credit than last year, but this is again the Canadiens team that looks like they're on the playoff, in for a playoff team. But who knows? I mean, last year they had their best record, which is just still staggering. The best record in the history of the Montreal Canadiens, the team that's won the Stanley Cup 26 times. They had their best record in their best starting record in their history, the best start they've ever had, and didn't make the playoffs. That was still staggering. So this year we'll see what happens. But the Stars and Jets tonight, the Predators and Kings, the Blue Jackets and Sharks. The Blue Jackets, after losing their first 2 games, have won 2 and tied 1 in their last 3. So they're getting their act together a little bit. Sharks look like they're a team with a little bit of a Stanley Cup hangover to me right now when I watch them play.
Yeah, and I still think it's a little strange that they really don't have an experienced backup goaltender. I know that doesn't come into focus a lot, but you have Martin Jones coming off a really good year, and they had Reimer through the last part of the year in the playoffs, and they didn't go out and get a backup goaltender. They have a 27-year-old journeyman named Aaron Dell as the backup goalie, and I think if Mike Condon gets put on waivers in the next few days, which might happen when Matt Murray finally comes back with Pittsburgh, or if Murray's already come back, maybe they're keeping him around. But Condon, if he was put on waivers, you could have LA and San Jose fighting over Mike Condon. Whoever's in might claim that guy.
You could. I mean, I still think. Don't we think that they're going to bring in Lindmark to play some games?
It's only a PTO. I think it's more just a sort of like disaster backup in case Campbell or in case Budai gets hurt. I mean,
still surprising that he would have done that. That he would have come over here for that. I guess it's anything's possible. But
who knows? Well, I know he was playing in the Swedish league, so yeah.
Yeah. Can we talk about the starting schedule that the Predators have had this year? Even though they are struggling, they're not terrible. They're right at 500. So their first games were okay. They had a home and home against Chicago on opening night, which is Friday and Saturday opening weekend. Right. They won 1, they lost 1. Then they went into Dallas, who was one of the best records, and they had Detroit, who not the greatest maybe. But then they went to Pittsburgh, Anaheim. Now tonight they're in LA. Saturday they're in San Jose. You know, then they finally get a break in November. It gets a lot easier, but that's a hellish schedule to start the NHL season with. And
yeah, I mean,
we're talking about a ton of good teams there.
To get that West Coast trip right off the bat is not great, but you also have to factor in the fact that they're in arguably the toughest division in hockey, and they're playing Dallas, St. Louis, Chicago, Winnipeg.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like there's not a lot of breathing room unless you're playing against the lower lights of the Eastern Conference. So I think they have a tougher go of it than some other teams do, But
November, the first 3 weeks of November, they can definitely make up some ground. They got Colorado, Arizona, Carolina, Ottawa. They do have St. Louis and Anaheim, but then they have Toronto, Ottawa.
There's a couple big
games. Yeah, there should be a couple games in there where they win. 2 games against Winnipeg. November should be a good month for the Predators, but they have to get. I guess the idea to get through this kind of a stretch like that is to try to get through 500 without completely falling apart. And really, what you want to do in the NHL is the key is just getting points when you lose. I mean, that's always been the key. Get a point. Even if you're not going to win the game, just if you steal a point at any point, you're fine. So there you go. At any point, you're fine. There should be the logo of the NHL. That's all the time we have for today, kids. We'll be back again tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you then. Remember to subscribe, by the way, to us on YouTube, okay? And also check us out on iTunes and go to reddit.com/hockey to support the show. Thank you very much, guys. Talk to you soon.